And a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top story tonight on Gravitas is on the Russia-Ukraine war. Ukrainian forces have launched another bold offensive, this time targeting Russia's Belgorod region. We decode the latest from the battlefield to get you the bigger picture. That's coming up in just a bit. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show. As Israel bombs Syria's Damascus and Hama, what are the implications of these moves? We tell you all about Donald Trump's war on the world. We decode his tariff moves and tell you how India is working to turn adversity into advantage. All this and more coming up. Our top focus in this edition, Ukrainian forces have launched another bold offensive, this time targeting the Belgorod region. And this move has ignited fierce battles along the border, with Russian forces asserting dominance on the battlefield. Our next report unpacks for you all the details.
The Russia-Ukraine war has entered a new theatre. Ukrainian troops have launched a daring attack on Belgorod. Heavy fighting erupting in villages like Demidovska and Popovska inside Russian territory. Russian troops are throwing everything they have to repel the attack. Belgorod Oblast is in western Russia and borders Ukraine's Sumy, Kharkiv and Luhansk oblasts. Russia has launched numerous attacks against Ukraine from Belgorod. Military analysts say Ukraine's assault on Belgorod is no random act. It's a strategic attempt to divert Russian forces from Kursk, where Moscow has concentrated troops to pin down retreating Ukrainian units. By striking Belgorod, Kyiv is forcing Russian commanders to split their resources and redeploy reinforcements and withdrawing from Kursk. Remember, Russian troops have encircled the Ukrainian soldiers in Kursk. Russia responds with overwhelming firepower, deploying Iskander ballistic missiles, howitzers and TOS-1A flamethrowers to counter Ukraine's advance. Russia's defense ministry claims coordinated airstrikes and artillery barrages have inflicted significant casualties on Ukrainian forces. The use of advanced drone swarms, including Shahid drones, has allowed Russian forces to strike Ukrainian targets with precision, targeting both military and civilian infrastructure. Kharkiv city claims a surge in long-range drone strikes, highlighting the Russian military's technological edge. Moscow says Russian energy infrastructure in the Kursk region was targeted twice in the past 24 hours, resulting in power outages for over 1,500 households. On the other hand, President Zelensky says a Russian drone hit a substation in the Sumy region, while an artillery strike damaged a power line in Dnipropetrovsk region, leaving nearly 4,000 users without power. Russia and Ukraine agreed to develop measures to implement a 30-day ceasefire on energy infrastructure after separate talks with US delegations in late March. However, the conflict remains complex and riddled with ceasefire breaches. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Our next story is about Kirill Dmitriev, a key Kremlin negotiator and a close ally of the Russian President Vladimir Putin, is in Washington for talks with the Donald Trump administration for possible breakthroughs in Russia's talks with the United States on Ukraine. In fact, Dmitriev is no ordinary envoy. One with multiple credentials to his name, in fact, like prestigious academic degrees from institutions like the Stanford University, as well as the Harvard Business School. He is also the senior-most Russian official to visit the US since Moscow invaded Ukraine in 2022. Dmitriev, who has been appointed by the Russian president as Special Investment and International Economic Envoy in February, now has been sent to handle an issue as sensitive as the Ukraine war and negotiate the terms with the bigwigs of the Donald Trump team, including US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, a close Trump ally and a key figure in efforts to secure an agreement to end the war in Ukraine. Over the years, Dmitriev has positioned himself as someone the Trump administration can successfully engage with for business, and to handle something as critical as the Russia-US talks, he is perhaps Putin's best bet. Witkoff's meeting with Dmitriev also comes after Trump recently vented frustration, saying the Russian president is not complying with the terms proposed by America to end the war in Ukraine. He even threatened secondary tariffs on buyers of Russian oil should Putin refuse a ceasefire with Ukraine. Therefore, the current talks between the Trump administration and Dmitriev marking a clear effort to smooth over the tensions between the two sides, but it might just be far from easy. In the latest, Dmitriev said that unidentified forces were trying to sow tensions between Russia and the United States. Taking to messaging app Telegram, he said, and I'm quoting, "Today, numerous forces interested in maintaining tensions stand in the way of restoring constructive cooperation. These forces are deliberately distorting Russia's position, trying to disrupt any steps towards dialogue, sparing neither money nor resources for this," quote unquote. Dmitriev's concerns are not unfounded, especially when Russia is ready to move on and extend a cooperative hand towards the US in form of important projects in the pipeline, like a joint multi-billion-dollar deal on rare earth minerals and cooperation on energy exploration and shipping routes in the Arctic. And amid all of this, the Ukraine issue serves as the biggest bone of contention, it seems.
Российская сторона продолжает придерживаться этого моратория. Нарушение Киевом этого моратория, точнее, по сути, неприсоединение Киева к этому мораторию продолжается. Как уже было отмечено, мы это положение дел доводим до сведения американцев.
On to the escalating tensions in West Asia. Israeli airstrikes pounded multiple military sites across Syria, including a key airport, reportedly leaving at least 13 people dead. In a post on X, Israel's military confirmed it targeted strategic military installations along with additional infrastructure. In fact, the IDF said that strikes were aimed at dismantling remaining military capabilities and removing potential threats. The Syrian Foreign Ministry condemned the attack. In a post on X, the ministry said that Israel struck 5 locations across Syria within a 30-minute window, adding that the strikes led to, quote-unquote, near total destruction at the Hama military airport, injuring dozens of civilians and soldiers. As you see in these visuals, fighter jets, military vehicles, various types of ammunition lie damaged or completely destroyed at the Hama airbase. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, said that Israeli strikes Israeli airstrikes near the airports in a T4 base, Hama and the Damascus area, in his words, served as a warning for the government to stop allowing hostile forces into Syria. Syria's state-run Sana news agency reported that Israeli shelling in the southern province of Daraa reportedly killed 9 civilians and injured several others. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights identified the victims as local fighters who took up arms following an Israeli incursion. The IDF stated its forces carried out operations in Daraa province, seizing weapons and destroying enemy infrastructure. And an IDF spokesperson further emphasized that future military actions will continue if necessary. Now, this is the aftermath of the Israeli strikes near the Baraza Scientific Research Center in Damascus. At least one building was completely destroyed in the overnight Israeli airstrikes. And Israel's military campaign against Syria has intensified ever since HTS toppled former President Bashar al-Assad in November. A month later, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered troops into the previously demilitarized UN buffer zone along the 1974 armistice line on the Golan Heights. And by February, Netanyahu demanded complete demilitarization of southern Syria, stating that his government will not tolerate HTS-led forces operating near Israel's borders. Now, it's important to note here that the conflict between Israel and Syria is not just between the two countries. In fact, Israel is significantly concerned about the growing presence of Turkey in Syria, with an Israeli government committee in January cautioning Netanyahu that the Syrian-Turkey alliance could be a greater danger to Israel than even the one posed by Iran. Says a lot. In the latest such development, Israel's foreign minister has said that Turkey is doing its utmost to convert Syria into a Turkish protectorate.
With regard to Syria, we indeed are worried by Turkish. They are doing their utmost to have Syria as a Turkish protectorate.
And with no signs of de-escalation, tensions in West Asia continue to mount. And the question still is, how far and in which direction will this conflict really head? Meanwhile, Israel is tightening its control over Gaza, escalating its offensive to force Hamas into releasing hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that his military will keep seizing territory until the hostages are freed. Further adding that the Israeli Defense Forces have now taken control of the Morag corridor, a critical strip of land between Khan Yunis and Rafah. The corridor was once an Israeli settlement before the country withdrew from Gaza in 2005. But now, Netanyahu is calling it Israel's second Philadelphia corridor.
Last night in the Gaza Strip, we shifted gears. The IDF is seizing territory, striking terrorists, destroying infrastructure, and doing something additional. We are taking control of the Morag corridor. This will be the second Philadelphia, the additional Philadelphia corridor, because we are now dissecting the Gaza Strip and increasing the pressure step by step, so that they will return our hostages. The more they refuse, the more the pressure will increase until they do.
In fact, the Israeli military has released footage of its soldiers operating in Rafah, the southern city that it recently ordered Gazans to fully evacuate from. The IDF video shows troops maneuvering through houses, engaging in combat, and carrying out aerial strikes. The IDF has confirmed that its forces have successfully encircled the Tal al-Sultan neighborhood in Rafah, further extending its position in Gaza. On to breaking developments coming in right this minute. As per news agency AP, US President Donald Trump has moved to fire several National Security Council officials over concerns that they are not sufficiently loyal. Let's get in further details now from our correspondent Susan Teherani with us from New York for more on that. Susan, what more can you share with us?
Okay, so we know now the names of the three officials. These are staffers, basically. Brian Walsh, a director for national intelligence and a former top staffer for now Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Thomas Rudry, a senior director for legislative affairs who previously served as Mike Waltz's legislative director in Congress. And the third one is David Feith, a senior director overseeing technology and national security who served in the State Department during President Trump's first term. Now, these are according to reports. We haven't verified them independently, considering the fact that the National Security Council has not commented yet on this incident that the AP was first to report on.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment, Susan. Thanks very much for joining us with those details. And we will keep a close eye on the latest coming in. Shifting focus for now.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. Waiting for a long time.
We're going to fight these tariffs with countermeasures.
Trade war is bad for working people.
This is an extraordinary day for the world economy.
Is a major blow to the world economy. I deeply regret this choice.
Tough traders.
U.S. President Donald Trump has fired the first shots in a sweeping new trade war. He has imposed brutal tariffs that threaten to upend global markets. At the heart of it, a universal 10% tariff on all imports into the U.S. for everyone, as well as higher duties on several countries, particularly in Asia. These measures risk dismantling entire business models for thousands of companies, factories, and entire countries in a way. It's the biggest upheaval in global trade norms since World War II. Is this merely a negotiation tactic, or is there more to it? The U.S. administration suggests it's a strategy to fund planned tax cuts. As the world reeled under Trump's tariff moves, the U.S. president said, and I'm quoting, "The operation is over. The patient lived and is healing. The prognosis is that the patient will be far stronger, bigger, better, and more resilient than ever before," quote unquote. That's what Trump posted on his Truth Social platform less than an hour before Wall Street opened for trading. Asked the White House, and it has bluntly said, I'm quoting, "This is not a negotiation, it's a national emergency," quote unquote. And what's the worst part, you ask? While Trump says he wants to protect his country, his measures are a disaster for the world's poorest countries. Reactions have been swift. Asian markets plummeted. Both China and the EU have vowed countermeasures. Australia and Italy have condemned this quote-unquote economic sabotage. Economists say this is the biggest change in global trade in 100 years. We've entered an era of uncertainty. What will the cost of this trade war be, really? Will it drive countries towards new alliances? Has America risked global isolation? Can it maintain its position while shaking the foundations of international trade? The barrage of tariffs targeted the European Union with a staggering 20%, Japan 24%, South Korea 25%, Taiwan and an astounding 32%. European Commission President has described Trump's tariffs as a major blow to the world economy. She said she deeply regretted the U.S. move and warned of immense consequences.
President Trump's announcement of universal tariffs on the whole world, including the European Union, is a major blow to the world economy. I deeply regret this choice. Let's be clear-eyed about the immense consequences. The global economy will massively suffer. Uncertainty will spiral and trigger the rise of further protectionism.
Even an uninhabited Antarctic island caught in the crossfire. Take a look at this picture on your screen. Satellite images of Heard and McDonald Islands located in the sub-Antarctic Indian Ocean. No one lives there, but they are Australian territory. And so they face a 10% tariff by the White House. Among the most baffling decisions in a way is the hefty 29% tariff on Norfolk Island, a tiny Australian outpost that's located just about 600 miles off the coast of eastern Australia. And according to the US government data, the US has recorded trade deficits with Norfolk Island for the past 3 years. This tiny island now shares a list with global giants like China, the EU, even though it has negligible manufacturing capacity. That's not all. Cambodia was slapped with Asia's highest tariff rate of 49%. You know how much the average Cambodian earns a day? Around $6.65. That's less than a fifth of the global average. Madagascar, which is one of the world's poorest countries, was hit with a rate of 47%. Bangladesh hit with 37%. Laos was hit with a 48%. Southern African nation of Lesotho was hit by a 50% tariff. And in Myanmar, which is still coming to terms with the devastating earthquake last week, was hit with a 45% duty. No wonder economists are questioning the fairness of America's tariff calculations, given its oversized impact on the poorest countries in a way. And Trump says he wants to get the US trade deficit back to zero. But it's truly a total rewiring of the global economy. Tariffs at this scale on Asia will hike prices of clothes, toys, electronics much more quickly. The question is, how is the rest of the world responding? And what lies ahead? What's next? A messy global trade war, it seems. And France, for that matter, is taking a rather tough stance against the US president. Emmanuel Macron calling for suspension of French investment in the US till the tariffs are clarified. Macron says Europe must react to tariffs industry by industry. Macron asserting that Europeans should work together in their response to US tariffs to dismantle them. Speaking at a meeting with representatives of industries, Macron said Europe will react in an organized and unified manner, and all instruments are on the table to respond. Trump's order hikes the current rates to a baseline 10% on all imports to the US, 20% for products coming from the European Union. However, the new tariffs announced by Trump could severely impact strategic industries, including aeronautics, wine and spirits, luxury goods from France. In 2024, the US goods trade deficit with France was $56 billion. The EU chief calling Trump's tariffs a major blow to the world economy, like we said. And Trump's tariff bombshell has rattled global trade. India, though, sees a silver lining. As competitors face harsher blows, New Delhi is quietly working to turn adversity into advantage. The US has imposed a steep 34% tariff on Chinese goods, sending shock waves through supply chains. Countries like Indonesia and Vietnam, that are key competitors of India, are also reeling. India, though, hit with a 27% tariff, still has room to maneuver. While its exporters feel the impact is far less severe than that on China, the US has a trade deficit of $46 billion with India. The US president says the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a good friend, but he pointed out India's high tariffs on American goods as unfair.
India, very, very tough, very, very tough. The Prime Minister just left. He's a great friend of mine, but I said, you're a friend of mine, but you're not treating us right. They charge us 52%. You have to understand, we charge them almost nothing for years and years and decades.
New Delhi, in a carefully worded statement, says that it is studying the opportunities that may arise due to this new development, a likely reference to regional competitors being hit harder.
The global value chains will restructure because of this country-level uneven tariffs. And many of the goods like electronics, machinery, labor-intensive goods like textiles and garments, which were being produced in China, Vietnam competitively. Now, because of the high labor content in these goods, some of the global manufacturers may find relocating to India very attractive.
India's neighboring countries facing graver concerns. Bangladesh's textile industry calling the US tariffs a massive blow, warning of lost contracts and factory closures. Trump imposed a 37% tariff on Bangladesh. Bangladesh is the world's second biggest clothing exporter after China, by the way. And the garment sector employs more than 4 million workers in Bangladesh.
Obviously, these additional tariffs will have adverse implications for the consumers, the US consumers. To that extent, the demand for Bangladeshi apparels, and for that matter, all imported apparels, will be adversely impacted. It will go down.
A 44% tariff has been imposed on Sri Lanka. The island nation fears job losses in the thousands as its exports become more expensive for American buyers. With debt repayments due to start in 2028 after the country declared bankruptcy and entered an agreement with the IMF in 2022, key industries in a structured IMF recovery program may be hit by Trump's tariffs.
I would consider it serious because we are still at the tail end of the stabilization process, and our debt repayment will start in 2028, and the apparel industry, the rubber industry and some of the agricultural products were the main categories that we were looking for expanding.
The White House says pharmaceutical goods from India will be exempt from the reciprocal tariffs, and this is crucial as India shipped more than $8 billion in exports to the US in the 2024 fiscal year. India's textile, electronic sectors also seeing a major opportunity. With China facing harsher tariffs and an increasingly hostile trade environment, global buyers are expected to seek alternatives. India's vast workforce, improving infrastructure and government incentives, making it a compelling choice. And before we go any further, here's a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We get to the story of a Japanese lawmaker wanting to have sanitary napkins available in public toilets, and how and why she received thousands of death threats for this simple demand. It's a shocking story. We tell you all about the first all-female flight crew in more than 6 decades, gearing up for an April 14 launch. We also tell you about the world's smallest pacemaker and how it's deemed to be a game changer. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi kick-started his 2-day visit to Thailand to take part in the 6th BIMSTEC summit that will take place tomorrow. Ahead of the BIMSTEC summit, Prime Minister Modi held talks with his Thailand counterpart in Bangkok. Addressing a joint press briefing with his Thailand counterpart, the Prime Minister said that the two countries have enhanced their ties to strategic partnership. Listen in.
हमने भारत के उत्तर पूर्वी राज्यों और थाईलैंड के बीच टूरिज्म, कल्चर, एजुकेशन ऐसे क्षेत्रों में सहयोग पर बल दिया है। आपसी व्यापार, निवेश और बिजनेसेस के बीच आदान प्रदान बढ़ाने पर हमने बात की। एमएसएमई, हैंडलूम और हैंडीक्राफ्ट में भी सहयोग के लिए समझौते किए गए हैं।
The Prime Minister was seen sitting alongside Bangladesh's Mohammad Yunus. All eyes now will be on the BIMSTEC summit that will take place tomorrow. Established in 1997, the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, BIMSTEC, is an international organization of 7 South Asian and Southeast Asian nations, member states being India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Thailand. After his visit to Thailand, Prime Minister Modi is expected to visit Sri Lanka from the 4th till the 6th of April. There, he will review the multifaceted India-Sri Lanka friendship and discuss newer avenues of cooperation. This visit comes after the successful visit of the President to India last December. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has upended European security and made Europe wary of America's betrayal. The question is, will Europe be able to mitigate its reliance on the US and put an end to this one-way street partnership? Our next report telling you more.
The US is trying to halt the fighting in Ukraine. The Trump administration is drawing closer to Russia. This is in complete contrast to the Biden administration. The Europeans had aligned with Washington and sent billions of dollars in weapons and aid to Ukraine. But now there is a rethink. They are wary of the next move of the White House. The US has provided a security umbrella to Europe. It has stationed thousands of troops and nuclear weapons on the continent. But under Trump, the strong transatlantic partnership is on a slippery slope. NATO leaders are presently meeting in Brussels amidst a growing sense of distrust. Europeans are wondering if its longtime ally, the US, has become an unreliable partner. NATO leaders are presently meeting in Brussels amidst a growing sense of distrust. Europeans are wondering if its longtime ally, the US, has become an unreliable partner. The US is not planning to pull out forces from Europe, at least not all of a sudden.
There are no plans for them to all of a sudden draw down their presence here in Europe, as I said yesterday. But we know that for America, being the superpower they are, they have to attend to more theaters than one.
But the US has made it clear that its troops cannot remain in Europe indefinitely. There is a new strategic realignment. Europe wants to be self-reliant. It wants to arm itself and has also set up a fund of over $150 billion. The Europeans also want to lessen their reliance on America.
When we have the white paper, then we are also thinking about what more can we do for our own defense industry, because we are buying a lot from the Americans right now, but we need to diversify our portfolio so that we would have capabilities to produce here.
European arms imports shot up 155% between 2020-2024 compared to 2015-2019, a reaction to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago. While the US supplied 52% of European military equipment between 2015 and 2019, the share rose to 64% in the subsequent 5-year period. Europe now wants to change it. It is now looking for other countries like France and Germany, also at South Korea and Israel. Europe has set an ambitious deadline of 2030 to arm itself.
By 2030, Europe must have a strong European defense posture. Readiness 2030 means to have rearmed and developed the capabilities to have credible deterrence. Readiness 2030 means to have a defense industrial base that is a strategic advantage. But to be 2030 ready, we must move now.
The Trump administration, which has already ruffled feathers by imposing tariffs on its European partners, is privately pushing them to keep buying American weapons. The Europeans have a bigger problem. Who should they buy weapons from? Can the new weapon supplier be trusted? Also, will those weapons be compatible with the existing NATO weaponry, which has been designed in collaboration with the Americans? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And days after Mohammad Yunus triggered a row by calling his country a guardian of ocean for 7 northeastern states of India and urged China to extend its presence in the region, New Delhi has reiterated its commitment to complete the trilateral highway that will connect India's northeast to Myanmar and Thailand. Addressing the 6th BIMSTEC summit in Thailand, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said India's northeastern region is emerging as a connectivity hub for BIMSTEC countries with a network of roads, railways, waterways, grids and pipelines. He said after his completion, the trilateral highway will connect India's northeast to the Pacific Ocean, as the project is a game changer in India's neighborhood policy. And in an apparent response to Mohammad Yunus's comment, S. Jaishankar said India has the longest coastline, which is almost 6,500 kilometers in the Bay of Bengal, and the country is fully aware of its responsibility towards BIMSTEC. Pursuing the 3 crucial initiatives of Act East policy, neighborhood first approach, and the Mahasagar outlook, he further reminded that New Delhi believes that cooperation is an integrated outlook, not one subject to cherry picking. The 1,400-kilometer-long India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway will link Moreh in Manipur with Mysot in Thailand via Myanmar. India's road link with Southeast Asia will give a boost to trade, business, health, education and tourism ties among the 3 countries. Till July 2023, at least 70% of construction work on the highway had been completed. The unrest in Myanmar has paused the project. Apart from that, India also expects to resume the multimodal transport project, which will basically link Mizoram in India's northeast to Sitwe port in Myanmar's Rakhine state via road and inland waterway. The project had been stalled for years due to the civil war in Myanmar. But according to reports, India has been able to convince the Myanmar military and Arakan army about the importance of the project. On to Turkey now. It witnessed a day of solidarity and protest with a nationwide no spending day and shutdown of commercial establishments days after the arrest of the Istanbul mayor. The general boycott was called by Turkey's main opposition party, the Republican People's Party, and the call prompted widespread closures of shops, coffee stores and restaurants in Istanbul on Wednesday as mark of solidarity. Critics claimed the mayor's arrest was a politicized and anti-democratic attempt to hurt the opposition's electoral prospects.
Boycott is a right call. It is a late decision. Boycott is something that needs to be done. People need to show their reaction. If they continues this way, the country is getting worse. The boycott action that Mr. Özgür Özel started is a very correct thing. As shopkeepers, we join this. All the shopkeepers in this area are joining it as well.
The Turkish government has denounced the opposition call for mass commercial boycott that sparked nationwide demonstrations. It described the boycott call as an economic sabotage attempt. Listen in.
I am completely against the boycott decision. It is national income. Excuse me. There is no sense in boycotting some people to cover up some people's thievery. Let them be acquitted and come rule the country. That is what I am saying.
In the Turkish capital, tables at usually busy cafes were empty. Many shops reported a significant drop in customers.
I am 56 years old, and I think for the first time Turkey has become one. Actions that can create a big impact are being taken. In my opinion, the government really needs to pull itself together. They need to turn their faces to the citizens.
And hundreds of Turkish opposition supporters gathered at a park in Ankara to share pastries and tea as part of a day of no spending.
I think it's something that needs to be done every week. This is the only way we can make our voices heard. because we're still ignored. Interestingly, we're ignored. But somehow, they have to realize that we exist too.
Our next story is about an all-girls trip. No ordinary one at that. What's the destination, you ask? Beyond planet Earth. You heard that right. It's an all-female crew gearing up for a historic space mission. Let's spill the beans and tell you more about the mission and who all are going to be a part. Well, the countdown is already on. Just days to go. The April 14 launch will see singing sensation Katy Perry blasting off to space. This will be on a Blue Origin rocket. Who all will be accompanying her? Bezos owned Blue Origin earlier in a statement had said pop star Katy Perry and journalist Gayle King, Lauren Sanchez, who is also billionaire Jeff Bezos' fiancée, will be blasting off into space. And the rest of the crew? Aisha Bowie, bioastronautics research scientist and civil rights activist Amanda Nguyen, film producer Kerian Flynn. This will mark the first all-female flight crew in decades. That's how historic it is. The rocket will carry the crew to the Kármán line, the internationally recognized boundary of space. The passengers will experience a few minutes of microgravity before returning to planet Earth via parachute-assisted landing in the West Texas desert. The flight will reportedly reach a height of about 65 miles above Earth. In fact, they have given their first interview together as a crew, telling Elle about how they are preparing for that crucial flight. Among other aspects, for example, King has told Elle that she is starting to meditate to help her. There's obviously a lot of preparation involved, including getting used to the feeling of weightlessness and deciding what to take along for that mission, which of course has a limit, reportedly a 3-pound weight limit per passenger. And by the way, speaking to Elle, the crew spoke about how 2 phrases they can rely on if they feel uncomfortable. What are these? Time out and I will not fly. Also, the crew told Elle that they plan to be glamorous in space, with singer Katy Perry saying space is going to finally be glam, quote unquote. Remember, Jeff Bezos' space company aims to rival SpaceX in the satellite launch business, and it's a pretty intense contest at that. For now, all eyes are on this historic all-women mission. Shifting focus now to the United States. Weeks after US President Donald Trump delayed a ban of the Chinese-owned video sharing app TikTok has returned to Apple and Google's US app stores and can be downloaded by millions of American users who will be able to update the app again. However, with the TikTok ban deadline, which was set for April 5 looming, there are a lot of question marks about what lies ahead. The White House is currently considering a deal to work out the app's legal hassles. Back in January, the app temporarily went dark, and the options before its owner, ByteDance, were laid out loud and clear. Either sell it to a non-Chinese buyer or face a ban in America. Due to concerns over national security, TikTok has been charged with a serious offense of sharing US user data, a charge it categorically denied. And on the 20th of January, Donald Trump signed an executive order delaying the law's enforcement by 75 days. And since then, TikTok has been struggling to find a buyer, reportedly, even as Trump seems to be reconsidering to extend the 75-day delay. He is positive that a buyer will be found. Listen in.
Will you extend, if a TikTok deal is not made on the timeline you gave, will you extend that?
Probably, yeah.
You will?
I think, look, we have a lot of interest in TikTok. And China is going to play a role. And so hopefully China will approve of the deal. But they're going to play a role. But we have a lot of interest in TikTok.
How long will you extend it and how close are you to a deal?
Well, we'll see. But if I need, right now we have at least another month. So we don't need an extension. But if I needed an extension, I'd probably get it extended.
And with the April 5 deadline nearing, Bidders for the social media site are piling up, among which is popular e-commerce brand Amazon, which has reportedly put in a last-minute bid to acquire all of TikTok. The bid apparently came via an offer letter addressed to Vice President J.D. Vance and Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary. It's not clear at this point how seriously Amazon's bid is being taken, but it's not just Amazon. Earlier reports emerged that TikTok could be acquired by none other than Tesla CEO Elon Musk, after Trump suggested that he was open to Musk buying the ByteDance-owned application if he wanted to do so. However, Musk refuted these reports, saying that he was not interested in the application, adding that he does not use the short video app personally and was not familiar with the app's format, reportedly. This by no means discards the app's immense popularity world over, despite it cooking up several controversies that prompted many countries from banning its operations, including India. As of March 2025, TikTok has over 1.58 billion monthly active users, with its largest audience base in the US with over 135 million users. As part of its current standing, according to a report by the Financial Times, the White House came close to approving a plan that would allow a group of investors to buy a stake in TikTok's US operations, but with no decisive mandate as of now. TikTok's future hangs in the air. So the question is, can TikTok be saved from a ban, or will it meet its end should it fail to find a buyer within the stipulated deadline? Only time will tell. Ayaka Yoshida wanted to make menstrual products available in public restrooms. What happened next? She received thousands of death threats in a country where discussing periods is still taboo. Is Japan ready for this conversation? That's our next story. A story about a Japanese politician who received more than 8,000 death threats for proposing free sanitary napkins in public toilets. Can you believe that? Yoshida, who is a young member of the Japanese Communist Party, recently took to X to narrate the ordeal that she had to face when she suddenly got her periods one day. She went to the public toilet of the local city council office, but she could not find sanitary napkins. And as a result, she could not deal with it properly until she got home. She said, and I'm quoting here, "I want sanitary napkins to be available everywhere, like toilet paper," quote unquote. Yoshida, a member of the Prefectural Assembly in central Japan, said in a separate post that when a question was asked at the city council about installing sanitary napkin dispensers, the city authorities also were reluctant, reportedly. Now, let's just pause here. Does Yoshida's statement offend you in any way? Do you find it problematic? Is asking for a proper and hygienic way to deal with periods wrong? Because what happened next is beyond imaginable. According to South China Morning Post, the May Prefectural Assembly received over 8,000 death threat emails directed at Yoshida. And what's worse, all the emails reportedly came from one address and carried an identical message. They said, I'm quoting, "I will kill Assembly member Ayaka Yoshida, who does not bring emergency napkins with her while being old enough to know better," quote unquote. Yoshida herself shared a post on X on 31st of March saying she had received over 8,000 death threats, saying, and I'm quoting, "I felt scared." The politician reportedly told a news conference that these threats intimidated her and suppressed her activities. But she has filed a complaint with the police and an investigation is underway. But what warrants this reaction? Why should a woman who has to go through a very natural and bloody process every month face this level of anger? All she did was ask for a very basic facility. In Japan, period poverty, or the inability to afford menstrual products, is a growing issue, by the way. Recent surveys have shown 8.2% of women between the ages of 18 and 49 struggle to access sanitary goods. Additionally, menstruation remains a taboo topic in Japan, and women often feel embarrassed or ashamed to discuss it, which can further worsen the problem. While Japan has a menstrual leave policy, many women are reportedly unaware of it, and some feel pressure to take sick leave or are discouraged from taking time off work due to the country's excessive work culture. In fact, some 44% of women in Japan do not take any time off reportedly, even when they are in serious pain from their period. Sure, things have started changing, and in recent years, sanitary pads are increasingly becoming available for free in public restrooms. In fact, Sendai in Japan's Tohoku region has been providing free sanitary pads near the Sendai station since the COVID-19 pandemic. But 50 years after a female student led a movement at Tohoku University demanding the right, a lot still needs to be done. Unfortunately, sanitary napkins are still not considered essential supplies like toilet paper. Imagine a fully functional pacemaker, which is smaller than a grain of rice. Sounds bizarre, right? Well, scientists at Northwestern University have achieved exactly this feat. They have developed the world's smallest pacemaker. Unlike traditional pacemakers that require surgical implantation, this tiny pacemaker can be injected via a syringe. It's just 1 millimeter thick, 3.5 millimeters long. The team behind the new device saying they were motivated to help children born with congenital heart defects who require temporary pacemakers after surgery. Wondering how the tiny pacemaker works? Well, this rice grain-sized pacemaker works wirelessly with a chest-mounted device. When an irregular heartbeat is detected, the wearable unit automatically flashes a light indicating the pacemaker that heartbeat needs to be stimulated. Currently, temporary pacemakers require surgery to sew electrodes onto the heart muscles, where external wires are connected to a power unit placed on the patient's chest. These pacemakers are manually removed when they are no longer required. This removal process can sometimes lead to complications and tissue damage as well. The tiny pacemaker, however, has been specifically designed to dissolve harmlessly within the body, thus eliminating the need for invasive removal and the associated risks. The pacemaker has been successfully tested on mice, rats, pigs, dogs, human heart tissue. The team, in fact, is hoping to test the pacemaker in human beings in the next 2 to 3 years. Resembling a sci-fi theme set, Sotheby's is hosting Watch Auction in Switzerland's Geneva. These unique futuristic watches are captivating collectors from around the world. Take a look. And on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off, leaving you with Gravitas Worldview. Thanks for watching.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Catch me on Token Money Magnet, only on WION.
As Ghibli-style portraits rule the internet, we tell you what exactly is the Ghibli universe. Find out